All right, welcome, Lucy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am super excited to get to spend this time with you and really excited to get to share this time with the viewers as well, because I've been getting so many questions around sexual healing. So
Yes.
when I was doing all my research around content creators I wanted to bring onto the podcast, you immediately came to my mind, and I'm super glad that I went through with it. So how
Yes.
would you describe your job and how you connect with your clients?
Well, so what I do, I basically help people connect with more of their sexual energy and cultivate more of that. And not just for their sex lives, but really to fuel everything in their lives. So the way that I look at it is that what's happening within our sexuality and within the bedroom or within our relationship in that context, even just with ourselves, is a reflection of everything else in our lives. Because that's the source of it's our life force energy, our creative energy.
Absolutely.
It's the juice in life. So what I do is I help people to connect with that.
That's beautiful. It's such a honestly a brave line of work, because there's a lot of healing to be done, and it's a very vulnerable thing, and to have people like that trust you to open up with you in that way, and like to connect with you and allow you to see those vulnerable parts of themselves, it's just, I could only
Wow.
imagine the like emotional impact.
It's so fulfilling. And the thing is that I kind of teetered on the edge of full on going into this specific niche for years, but it was recurring, like the most common and the most needed area of coaching that all of my clients were there for. So I'm like, why don't we just like go all in? We're going to call this what it is.
I
And
love that. I love that, absolutely. Your content where you were dancing on the pole in that small room with, I can't remember if there was a mirror on the wall or not, but I remember seeing one of those videos and I was just watching, and I was so mesmerized with, specifically I was like, I remember looking at your feet, and I was like, because I've always like feet have always like weirded me out, but your feet looked graceful in this, and I was like, this is a
oh,
new level
thanks.
of like femininity that I've never like experienced in this way. So I was like, it was super weird. Like I was just like, this
I
is
love that.
beautiful. But I was that immediately made me want to ask you, like, how did your sexual healing change your idea of femininity?
Oh my God. It had everything to do with it. So first I want to say, thanks for saying that about my feet, because it's one of those things that as someone who used to be very, very uh embodying more of my masculine energy, and I don't even want to call it that because it wasn't even in a healthy way. It was like I needed to overcompensate and prove something and prove that like anything that the guys could do, I could do. I could
Right.
also lift over 200 pounds and compete in the martial arts, and
Yeah.
that's beautiful as a part of my journey. It's like it's beautiful. um but in all of that, I really beat up my feet. Like my feet took a beating. I've lost toenails. I've like, but it's probably, I think, yeah, it's the part of my body that I have liked the least. And so for you to say that about my feet, I'm like, oh, yay, feet. Yay.
Yay, feet.
Beautiful feet. Like,
I'm gonna have a whole new appreciation for, Quentin Tarantino's feet scenes.
like, I didn't ever have a foot fetish, but I've met people who have. I'm like, yes, you can touch my feet. Go ahead.
Yeah,
So
I've
love.
always been like freaked out because I'm 5'7.5" now, I think. And so I've always been like extremely tall. So I've always had bigger feet, and people have always teased me for it. And I'm like, if I had any smaller feet, I literally like topple over. What do you
You
want
need
from
to
me?
be proportionate, right? Right.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's like a lot of that. It's like when you start to unravel like what is femininity even look like, and you begin to take ownership of all those things,
Yeah.
like the size of your feet. And I was super weird about my nose and my nipples, especially after having kids, like all these things
Yeah.
that were like, this isn't what a woman should look like, or like a feminine woman. And so it's really, a lot of this is releasing the shame that we have around around what we think isn't good enough, or things that we have thought are even bad,
Yeah.
or in the context that I grew up in, sinful or lustful or just ungodly, or like pleasure. No, that's not. that's not your design, when literally our bodies were designed for that when we're born. We're trying to find ways to continue that bliss and that connection and that pleasure. So anyway, a lot of that is really releasing the shame and returning back to who we are. And that looks different for everyone. So there's no like one singular picture of this is what a woman should be or in the world.
That brings up a question that I didn't write down, but it popped in my head. How would you help someone who is male or more masculine in how they present and how they feel connecting with their femininity?
Oh, this is beautiful. Because my husband has been going through this journey for years now. And as much as I think we like to collectively paint this picture of toxic masculinity, right? Like the guys and no feelings, and I just want to watch sports and drink beer and fuck, like it's just and it's so it's also so I honestly unnatural. It's just not the essence of who men are either. So within all of us, we have the feminine and masculine energies. And so I have found that there is as much work for the men to do in healing their feminine and integrating their feminine as it is to embody a healthy masculine. And so one of the biggest things that have helped, I'm going to use my husband as an example, Ryan, has been actually letting himself dance. You would be astonished at how vulnerable it is for men to dance all by themselves. Like not like a choreography, like I'm a hip hop dancer and I'm a typical dancer, but like just free flowing. Yeah, like letting themselves be quote unquote feminine, whatever they think that looks like in their minds. Like, no, that's too girly, that's too womanly. And in letting himself have those experiences, it's been so healing for him. He's been able to actually blossom into his masculine, where he can hold that container for me and he can lead. And he can hold that safety.
How now is I haven't done a whole lot of research into y'all's dynamic in BDSM. Is he your dominant? Are you his submissive?
We don't have one singular ongoing dynamic. So I know we know that for a lot of people it works out better that way, or they prefer that, where one just really wants to stay in that and in each role. But we're both pretty fluid. So we like to switch it up. So technically we would both be switches, considered switches. But actually we both enjoy submitting more. So for us, the expansion has been in stepping outside of our comfort zones and actually learning how to lovingly lead. And that doesn't mean like I'm going to dominate you and you're going to do what I say. But leading and dominating is giving. It's all giving. And so with both of us having come from experiences that we felt starved, like childhoods and stuff, where we felt starved from that genuine love and being seen and being cared for, and somebody really leading us with our consent, with that trust, with that foundation of trust and safety. We both wanted that more than taking the lead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with my partner too. Yeah, we're both pretty, that sounds a lot like us.
Yeah. So the more that we've owned that and been able to integrate these parts of ourselves that we had disowned, which is, it's all the good shadow work stuff, the more we've been able to genuinely and eagerly lead. So therefore we both like to do both, and we're it just depends on what we're feeling, what the needs are. If someone's under a little bit more stress and needs to kind of unwind a bit more.
I'm going to pause. So what has your self-healing journey looked like for you? And like, what was the thing, your wake-up call that made you go like, oh, I need to heal?
Yeah, the wake-up call. So there have been several along the way, but the biggest one when it comes to this particular part is when my husband had these like mysterious injuries, it wasn't like he was in an accident or had some like big surfing incident or something. He was a very active guy. He's a veteran. He was always very like rock solid in his body and took a lot of pride in his body. It was a big part of his identity. And and he just started to have these pains all over his body, and they got worse and nobody could figure it out. And all the specialists kept, sending him to different specialists. And this went on for about 2.5 years. And he went into a really dark place. He got really depressed. He was disabled from doing a lot of things that he would do in normal day-to-day life. And so and at that time he was supposedly the stay-at-home parent. So I was working, but it was like I had a fifth child and also had to manage how the kids are going to get taken care of, and earn all of the money that we need to support 6 people in Southern California. So it was a really stressful time. My body actually I started to develop an autoimmune disorder, and that kept me from sleeping at night. I would wake up just with like sores all over my body and bloody bed sheets and pillows. And it was hell. Like if there's hell in life, that was my hell. And so it was that was the big wake up call. It was like, I can't keep doing things the way that I've done them. Like it was this whole existential crisis of like, but I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me? I've done all the right things. I'm volunteering. I'm going to church. I'm, doing all the right things. Like, why is God doing this to me? And so that started the whole process of really looking deeper and letting myself see the pain that I had been covering up for my whole life. And so that was the first few years were really messy. It was a lot of working through triggers, a lot of waking up. And in that process too, Ryan starting his process of all of this. And when you have 2 people trying to navigate their traumas and their childhood things, and they're being activated by each other constantly, like it was really fucking messy. So that's how that started. And it's just been a continual process. Like we each continue to do our own work and figure out, okay, this doesn't work, this does work. Okay, you're not responsible for my happiness. How do I take ownership of my own well-being while I also set boundaries and ask for what I want?
Yeah, that's a big part too, the asking,
Yeah.
physically doing the speaking.
Like actually asking.
So many clients are like, my body language is like, I'm like, no, body language, not words. But by attitude,
yeah.
No, attitude, not words.
Yeah, like clearly communicating is so vulnerable, because then you might be rejected, you might be shut down, and that triggers all these abandonment things, all these attachment things. So yeah.
How has sexual healing like evolved your guys' relationships, going from like, especially with people who've dealt with different types of trauma, trying to help each other and themselves? Like, where did sexual healing come into the mix?
So here's what we've discovered, and then eventually also discovered that this applies to so many more people than just us. That the things that we tend to carry the most shame and repress the most and feel the most like disgusting about, and just like that we reject the most in ourselves, are within our sexuality, within our desires, things like are also our fantasies and our kinks. So actually that was what really opened the door for us to begin healing in this area, alone and together, but especially together, was actually exploring and sharing our fantasies and our kinks and the things that we were so scared that the other person would just reject us for. So that it's like, you think of it as like this container where you can explore in the most judgment-free and safe way, because it's like you have these ground rules and you get to share, you get to express these parts of yourselves in that space. And then whatever comes up from that, whatever triggers, whatever, like, ooh, I'm totally judging you for that, or you're too much for me, or are you serious? Like, what the fuck? You get to navigate those things as they come up. And there are those moments
Oh yeah.
that,
Oh yeah.
yeah, but that's really what lets you, the greater the risk, the greater the reward, right? So the more we have opened up in our vulnerability um, sexually, the more we can really see each other and connect with each other and have a deeper trust.
It is a whole new level of trust. And as a person who I dealt with trust issues my entire life, I never would have imagined myself opening up on a sexual level, but it has most definitely helped me work through trust outside of the bedroom in a more radical way. Let's just
Yeah, yeah. It's a reflection again of like everything else. It's
yeah.
just, it's the playground. It's the healing space.
That's awesome. What is a tip that you would give to someone who is a little bit on the fence about whether sexual healing is something for them on their journey?
Like a tip if they wanted to get started.
Yeah, I get a lot of people asking me all the time about how do I know if it's right for me? And I kind of tell them, trial and error is really the best way to go with really anything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say that everyone, there's not a single person that doesn't need sexual healing, and that doesn't mean that they have to have had some big trauma or sexual abuse or any like big looming thing that happened in their lives. It's simply because we live in the world that we live in. That is enough to need some level of sexual healing. The way that we the way that we experience what a woman should be like, what a man should be like, what it means to be feminine and masculine and all these things is so distorted. And I want to stay away from the words wounded, but sometimes it just, that's the best way to describe it. That the mother wound and the father wound are so deep in our world that there's not a single person that I know that I've ever met who is untouched by it. So it may not mean that they have to do a big see, the way that this manifests is different for everybody. So the answer would be different. What they're asking you, what are they experiencing that this particular thing is manifesting as? For example, for some people, they will for women, let's just talk about women for now. For some women, they will feel no sensation in their vaginas, like they'll have numb vaginas. Some women will have a lot of period problems, cycle issues, different things going on in their bodies and their hormones, or in feeling uncomfortable when they're having sex. Like these are the body's cues to do whatever level of work they need to do. Like it's not me personally, I'm not going to prescribe something for everybody and say, here, you need to see a pelvic floor specialist and you need to see a sexual therapist.
Right.
But that's their specific journey. But just to pay, one of the big things that they can do right off the bat is notice what's happening in their bodies. Do they feel full permission to receive pleasure? Do they struggle to orgasm? Do they feel ashamed masturbating? Do they feel distrusting of any partner? That, not any partner, I mean, like, do they in general have this distrust that they can't like surrender in sex? So these are all things that people can begin to notice and say, okay, well, what's the vision? For me, because of the different challenges and the pains and the restrictions and the feelings of shame and heaviness and like weirdness around my body, my vision was to feel liberated in my body, to feel completely free to receive pleasure. And that also, by the way, opened up the channel to receive in other ways. like money and relationships, friendships, and beautiful experiences, and just all kinds of other stuff. So it's not limited to just what's happening in the bedroom, but again, that will reveal so much more about what's happening in that person's energy and in their bodies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's really interesting in the way that, you know, everything reflects and manifests in our life. And that actually reminded me of one of your TikToks where you were talking about negative like views of sex in your childhood manifesting in your physical body. I would like to hear more about that because that was intriguing.
Yeah. So again, that can be so different. In each person, each body will respond differently. For me, the way that it looked in my body was feeling this, like just feeling weird in my body, feeling unsafe in my body. Like, oh, I can't be sexy, whatever that even means, because I'm gonna make somebody else I'm going to get unwanted attention, or I'm going to make somebody else stumble. And then if something happens to me, it's my fault. That is the bullshit that we were fed by society and a lot of religion. The truth is we're all responsible for ourselves. In fact, you know, you really want to get into that. And the Bible says, gouge out your own eyes if you're looking at women in that way, at people in that way. So all this to say that it can manifest differently. A, and then B, for me, I felt just generally unsafe in my body. Like I wasn't able to relax fully into the pleasure. So when we would be having sex, I would feel like, oh, let's just hurry up and get this over with. Like it's good enough. Let's just make it like the bare minimum good enough so that he's satisfied. Everybody comes, like we're fine. Let's get this done. Okay, how many days has it been? Check. And I'm missing out on so much. Like that is not the point. And not only that, but I also had a lot of numbness and discomfort in my vagina. So there were so many parts of my body that were not activated until I began doing the work in myself.
On your YouTube video, there was a post about de-armoring your pussy. And
Yeah.
is that kind of like what that is correlating with, like activating different parts of your body?
Yeah. That is definitely one way to do it. That's something that I talk about quite a bit on the YouTube channel. And so that is essentially teaching your body safety. So creating a safe container for your body to begin to open up. And especially when like the whole yoni area, right? It's not just like the vulva, the vagina, it's the womb, this whole like sacred space, right? When it begins to open up, let's put it this way, it won't open up unless it is safe to do so. So if you physically don't feel safe in your environment, that's one thing, right? But also if you don't feel safe in your own mind because of the beliefs that say you shouldn't be touching yourself. You should always save yourself for that person. You're a slut. You're a bad girl. Whatever those words, those stories are, that constricts the body, that constricts that energy. And so naturally your body's response is, this is unsafe. I'm going to do what I can to keep it from happening, to make it uncomfortable for you or painful for you or just not worth the time for you. So in what these de-armoring sessions, what you do is you begin to slowly reconnect with these parts of your body. And there's no agenda, there's no forcing, there's no, I have to do this by session 5. You show up and you're present with that energy. And when you feel that tension, you actually lean into it just a little bit and you allow it to release. And a lot of this too is sending intentional energy, loving energy into these different tense parts of your body. Kind of like envisioning melting butter. That's one of the things we do in the de-armoring process. And over time, women notice that they begin to feel more.
That's really interesting. That also, like, I immediately got the image of like all those like crystal like sex toys and stuff with like all the like rose quartz and stuff.
Yes!
Like, yes.
I recommend. I actually use the glass blown ones. That's what I've worked with the most. A glass is pretty neutral. You can infuse it with whatever your intentions and your energies are that you want to put into it.
Really cool. What would you say to like someone who wants to be a part of healing their sexual energy, but identifies as asexual and doesn't want to be made to feel like they are broken or something needs to be fixed about them?
Yeah. Well, that's the big thing right there, is to go into it with the mindset of just exploring, play, and curiosity. Like, not just for asexual people, but for anybody. If you go into it with a mentality of like, I need to fix this and then I'll be done, and then I can move on, like, check, it's again missing the point. Like there is and that's why as I keep working with people, we shift the language from sexual healing to sexual reclamation and liberation, because that feels so much more open, whereas healing can feel like, I just want to get better already. Like,
yeah, just hearing the difference between that made me feel something.
Yeah, it feels freeing. It feels like possibility. It feels like aliveness, instead of just let me survive, like heal enough to just be normal again.
Right.
We're not going back to normal. We're creating something new that you have never experienced before, something truly powerful and divine and out of this world, because that's what we're really craving at our deepest core on the cellular level. That's what sexual healing gives you. So what they can do is really the same thing. It's the same thing. It's move your body. Let your body make sounds. Use your breath. And then you can channel that energy into whatever you're creating in your life. If it's a business, if it's a book, if it's relationships, if it's just whatever. It's your life force energy. You choose where you're going to direct it. It doesn't have to be into sex. Now, for those of us who do enjoy sex, or once did enjoy sex and then felt like, what happened? Where did it go? Then you can get that back.
It's all so interesting to me, like the way that we as like beings can go through so much and feel so like tiny and meek and minuscule in every single way, and you can literally be like at rock bottom, be like like no, we have a whole new direction we can go.
yeah, and it's in those biggest breakdowns that the biggest breakthroughs happen. Really? If we just keep going. Yeah.
Let's see. Well, we honestly answered a lot of these questions just through that conversation. Truly. Okay, here's a fun one. What is an unpopular opinion that you have about the BDSM community?
About the BDSM community? Ooh, I haven't thought about this. Unpopular. What would be unpopular? Okay, I know. Okay. This. That whatever your position is has to be fixed. For example, like if you're dominant, you're dominant. You're submissive, you're submissive. Like that's just who you are. But what I've experienced, and again, not just with myself, but with people that I've worked with and people that I know, also a lot of them in the what we call the conscious kink community, as you do integrate more parts of yourself and give yourself permission to be who you are, other things tend to open up. So it's more fluid than we think.
And I mean, like kinks and like versions of ourselves morph and evolve, over time. So like there's so much of it that, we might think, oh, that would never interest me, or I'd never do something like that. I'd be like, well.
Yeah. Well, and also there's this temptation to overanalyze it and be like, well, I only want to call him daddy because I was an abandoned child. Like, just let it be what it is, And actually in a lot of times in exploring those kinks, and sometimes playing them out, that is an incredibly healing release, and sometimes just the energy activation that you need to move through whatever it is that's happening beneath the surface. And then you might still enjoy that thing just in a different way or at a different level. But it feels more expansive instead of like constricting.
That just made a whole lot of things make sense for me on a level. I have some shadow work to do now.
And just again, like a curiosity, playfulness, no like punitive, I need to go fix this shit now, you know?
If I don't do it, then I am not healed or conscious enough to like
Right?
manifest or, you know, something
Yeah.
like that.
I'm not awakened enough. I'm not, yeah.
People worried about, you know, healing every, like, I what if they don't think I'm woke?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I will have arrived. No,
Oh my
that's the point of the
gosh.
human thing, is to have the journey, not to, there's no arriving. You arrive, you're dead. Congratulations. You're at one with source again, in outside of human bodies.
How has going through transforming your energy and liberating yourself, I don't even want to use the word healing, sexual healing anymore, is how sexually liberating yourself.
Liberation. Yes.
How has this affected your relationship with your inner child?
Oh my God, it's the most beautiful thing. Okay, now the first memory, this is such an interesting conversation. Okay, I'm glad you went there. The first memory that I have, clear memory as a child, I was somewhere between 4 and 5, and I was in the back seat, and I was just very curiously touching myself. And my father saw from the rear view mirror, and he was like, "Oh, that's gross. Like that's disgusting, isn't it? Looks like you smell weird, isn't it?" And I just felt like I wanted to disappear into the cracks of the seat. Like I was like, I'm bad. Like something that I'm doing is wrong. Like I'm getting this ashamed response. He disapproves. And I remember a lot of the shame that I felt, a lot of the rejection that I felt was around, again, living in a girl's body and what kind of woman I would need to become to be good enough for my mom, for my dad, for God, for people around me. And so, um, doing this work as an adult has liberated my inner child as well. So she just gets to be playful, and she gets to create, and she feels again more expansive and open and full of hope and possibility, instead of afraid to be bad, even if it's not directly in a sexual way.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. That makes me so happy for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's see. Oh, here's one, and I was like, I don't even know if you want to go there, but let's go there. How has this journey affected your ego in regards to internalized misogyny?
Oh, that's interesting. I feel like that might be a lot to unpack. I think on a basic level, how has it impacted my, and yeah, well, see, it's forced me to unpack a lot of my internalized misogyny, to ask myself, like, why do I think this needs to be this way? Where did I learn that? Where did I learn that this was my role, or this was my preferred way to express myself or show up as a woman, as a mother? So I wish I had a specific example. Actually, like being submissive is a good one, because a lot of times we in society, in our world, we feel like women are told, like, or at least I heard the messages growing up, women should not be in leadership. They should, you should not be heard. Your voices don't matter. That all these messages, right? So we internalize those messages. I did. So in exploring within the safe container of kink with a trusted partner, allowing myself to fully submit and surrender, trusting that this person really does have my best interest. We've communicated boundaries and consent. We have safe words. We have all these things. It actually has helped me to reclaim my agency and my power, because it's really, when you're in that situation, the submissive really has the power. They're the ones who are setting the frame, and the dominant are like holding that container. They're creating the container, but you're actually holding the frame. I know that can feel a little bit, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have this conversation with people as a submissive myself all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of a different view. I mean, like I actually talked about this on a post a little while ago. I think it's, I kind of bullshit to debate about who has power, because ultimately a dominant can remove consent just as
Yeah.
quickly as submissive can. I fell into
Yeah, that's
this
true.
like debate on TikTok, as a submissive, because people would say I was less than because I was submitting to a man. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
no, like
Uh-huh.
this is a choice for my power and for my healing,
Yes.
my
Yes.
liberation. And so like
Yes.
when people would tell me that it was one person having the power, it was me, that kind of like made me
Yeah,
feel weird, because I was like, no, because that's not how the dynamic feels or works. But I also am not giving all my power away. It is
that's
shared.
right.
He can cancel
Yeah.
that contract and be like, nope, this is my line. He can change boundaries. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just
Well,
personally how I see
you
it.
get to choose. You get to choose and he gets to choose.
Yeah.
So, in that context, you both come to an agreement. And if at any point it feels off, or you just don't want to continue, or you're just like, you know what, never mind.
Yeah.
Anybody gets to change their minds. At any point, a yes can become a no for either person. You're not required or obligated to maintain your yes. So I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying about that. There's just a lot of times, just like you said, people will give someone in a submissive position shit about submitting to a man, when
Oh,
actually
yeah.
I find it very powerful. I
Yeah.
personally find it more powerful to submit to Ryan than to dominate him. Just that's how I feel about it. But I also enjoy dominating him, just in
Oh
a different
yeah.
way.
Yeah. I mean, my friend Danny all the time says the switches live the best life. They get a little, taste of this world, a little taste of this world. And
Yeah.
you're right. It is completely liberating. I think I mean, I've never submitted to a woman. I mean, I'm totally down, but
Oh,
I've
I
never.
have, and it's a different experience. I will tell you, it is beautiful, and we both learned a lot from it. Actually, that we activated in
I
both of us.
oh, I'm sure. there would be like there would be these times where I would feel like bad for like submitting to a man, but I was like, babe, to myself, like in this moment, like collared up and everything. I was like, babe, like out of all the men in the world, you trust him. Like there is a difference. He is not
Yeah.
the man, he's
Mm-hmm.
a man. And that's when like a lot of my own internalized misogyny like really like blew my own mind,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I realized that I was seeing man as villain and as predator, and
Yes.
I was like, oh my god,
Right.
that's not what I was trying to do. And then this
Yeah.
other amazing creator, his name is Kadara on Instagram and TikTok. He talks a lot about sexual liberation and like claiming back your power. And he ended up talking on this day that I had this epiphany, right? Divine timing, where he was talking about like, I don't care if you're triggered by me like being the villain and saying like men is not the bad guy. It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's how you do your healing towards your wounds that other men in your life caused you. That does not make all
Yeah.
man the problem. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yes. And that can help you to heal your relationship with men, with how you view men.
Yes.
Definitely did for me, because if we villainize them, then and we get to heal so much relationally. There's some things that really can only be healed, I believe, within the context of relationship, and not necessarily a romantic relationship, but just relationship with other human beings.
Yeah, I realized like I had a lot of like fear of being around men in general. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so after I started like opening myself up to realizing like men aren't all bad and they don't all want to hurt me and all want to, rip my clothes off at the drop of a hat, it
Yeah.
made even going to the grocery store an entirely different experience. And I
Yeah.
realized that as I changed my perspective of men, I stopped seeing threats in every single man
Yeah.
that was around me. So going to the grocery store and walking down an aisle and a man being the only one who's passing me wasn't, oh my God, he's going to kill you. And he's going to pull a knife and he's going to try and like rip
Yeah.
your panties off. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
all of that. It was just, he is a man trying to get to the Pringles just like you. And he's trying to get to the checkout and get home to his family. And you don't need to see a threat just because he has a penis.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That was
Exactly.
hard.
Yeah.
No pun
That's a big one.
intended.
Yeah. or maybe it wasn't hard and we expected it to be. We assumed it would be. Yeah.
Right?
So
Oh my gosh.
that's the thing. That's the part about just feeling unsafe in a woman's body.
Yeah.
That we just, we've like men are a threat.
Yep. It
It's
doesn't
just
help
there's
that
so
our
much
own
in that.
government tries to, revoke our own rights to our bodies.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much. There's just so much.
Well, I honestly think that covered like all of the questions just naturally, and I love that. Except for the last one, how can someone reach you in order to learn from you and communicate with you if they feel drawn to connecting with you on their own journey?
Well, I do keep everything updated on my website. It's lucilampe.com. And also just at the link in my TikTok or my Instagram, those also stay up to date. So any new courses, coaching options, discovery calls, YouTube channel, all that stuff will be on there.
Perfect. I definitely have been staying up to date with your content ever since I found you on my For You page, and I recommend it to
Yay!
anyone. Like all of your platforms are amazing and have truly inspired
Thank
me and
you.
helped me on my journey. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your gifts and your journey in such a vulnerable, beautiful way with the entire world. Like just from
Thank
healer
you.
to healer, like thank you.
Yes. Yes, it is a pleasure.
All right. For those of you who stayed with us through this episode of My Presence Reclaimed, I appreciate you all very much. Thank you for sharing this time with me, and I hope to catch you on the next episode that is undecided as of topic. So if you would like to leave suggestions, you can email me or leave it in the comments down below. Have a great day. Stay hydrated, stay blessed, and remember, kindness is motherfucking free.